Good shot, kid. I think you got him. Good shot, kid. I think you got him.
Hello there and welcome back to some more Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Today we'll continue on Let's Play and this is episode 56. In today's episode we are taking a look at the Ammunation shooting range. There's a few Ammunations scattered across the state that have shooting ranges, including this one here in Fort Carson, and oh boy, this one is an experience. So in Vice City this was a little bit of a bitch because of limited ammo. Fortunately you get unlimited ammo in this one, however it's just as much of a bitch because there's several rounds to this, as you'll see as we continue. So I should quickly mention, for the sake of transparency, you do need to do all 4 of these rounds, or sorry, 3 rounds, 4 weapons, and you need to do them all in one sitting. So if you fail at the last round of the last weapon, guess what? You're going back and go through all 4 weapons over again, which is not so much fun. So I will admit, for full transparency, this is my first sort of playthrough on round 1. I failed about 3 times, I think it was, and then after that, for every other weapon, you'll see all of my rain run going from there. The reason I'm showing you this first one is because the game sort of explains a little bit of what's going on. So as you can see, in this first round, we essentially get 3 targets apiece. Each target has, I think it's 7 critical zones, yes. Sort of 3 head, shoulders, and then you've got 2 in the chest and 2 in the top of the leg, sort of the thigh area. So, as you can see, throughout round 1, these are sort of going further and further back. These rounds are very easy. Round 2 is also pretty darn easy. Also, you can't shoot the other competitors, which is a damn shame. As you can see, I'm sort of trying to there, and it hasn't really worked. In round 2, you again all get individual targets, and this time they move towards you. Again, you've got 3 to do. As they move towards you, of course, they become easier and easier to hit. So the goal of this is to hit as many as possible, sort of hit as many the further back they are, because then they don't move forward. I don't know. You're essentially trying to beat these 2 people. That's the other thing. In Vice City shooting range, the biggest enemy was yourself and your own accuracy. In this one, your biggest enemy is actually the 2 competitors that you had next to you that are all aiming for the glory, and let me tell you, they are a bunch of wankers when it comes to this, because you'll see why in a bit. So for these first few rounds, not too much to explain. I will say, when the target's actually moving away like that, you might notice I fire off the rest of the rounds. The reason I do that is to get the weapon to reload itself, so I can have a full clip ready for the next target. This is the bitch though. In round 3 there is only 1 target, and you all essentially are competing for the different hitboxes on it. So 7 points each target, and you're competing with the 2 people beside you. You being in the middle, you are of course in the worst possible place, because that means sort of the target will start out in front of the left or the right. It will never start out directly in the middle, which always puts you at a disadvantage. And yeah, they're pretty accurate shots. Not so much in these first 2 rounds. These first 2 rounds are pretty simple, but after this, yeah, they're pretty accurate shots. And when they become pretty accurate shots, you'll definitely need some tips. So I'll look forward to giving you those later on. But this pistol round is very, very easy. Lures you into a false sense of security, which is definitely what this side mission does. Every weapon gets a little bit harder each time, but it's not really until round 3, or sorry, stage 3 I should say, that you really notice how difficult this is. This is probably one of the most painful things about going for 100%, to be honest with you. Not because it's particularly time consuming or even that particularly hard. It's just really irritating that you have to go through all this over and over again each time if you mess up on one of the final weapons. It doesn't just start you. For example, the next round is the micro SMG. If I fail at the micro SMGs, I don't start at the micro SMGs when I re-enter the shooting range. I have to start with the pistol all over again, and it's a nightmare. So speaking micro SMG, of course this one is an automatic weapon, unlike the pistol, which actually makes this easier. Another nice thing about the SMG is that it's actually pretty inaccurate. So you can sort of spray around the target and get a stray bullet to hit them. Also you get a very good sized clip, 50 rounds, which is very, very nice indeed. Yeah, this one is pretty straightforward. Now I should mention, of course, while you're in this, it does actually improve your shooting skill. Unfortunately, you don't get to choose which weapons you take into the shooting range with you, which would have made this incredibly useful for leveling certain awkward weapons like the silenced pistol up towards Hitman level. Unfortunately, you're just sort of stuck with the 4 they give you, and they're all pretty darn easy to level up in normal gameplay, and by the time you get here you probably would have. Hitman skill I find doesn't really matter all that much. I can't really test with the AK because, spoiler alert, that's the final weapon. Because I'm almost certain I got that to Hitman level during the story. The shotgun I got pretty darn close. And sort of that's holstered in a different way, and the SMG and the pistol actually become akimbo, but I do not think you get akimbo for these two, or at least as far as I could tell, because I'm fairly certain I hit Hitman with at least one of those weapons by the end of this, and I didn't end up with akimbo. So as you can see again, round 3, not too bad. In terms of this one, it's just when we get to the next weapon, it gets a bit awkward. If you are struggling with hitting on this one, I would recommend avoiding to go towards the top end of the target. I find that sort of where the AI likes to aim the most is sort of the head and the shoulder. There's no bonus points for hitting the target in the head, unlike in Vice City where there were sort of bonus points depending on where you actually hit the target. In this game, there's no such thing. So there's no real reason to aim for the head, you know, you get just as much from shooting them in the fight. The shotgun, this is where it gets a little bit awkward. So one nice thing with the shotgun is, well, it's a shotgun, which means it shoots pellets as opposed to bullets. Now, pellets don't necessarily function like bullets if you don't know firearms up, simply haven't played a Call of Duty game. Essentially, pellets, they fire buckshot, which is numerous particles as opposed to just a bullet. So pretty much anything within the crosshairs you will hit. And that's kind of nice, because that means you can sort of, you can see it a little bit here. I'm actually not aiming directly at the targets, I'm actually aiming in the middle for them, and sometimes a stray buckshot will strangle into the other target, and you will hit it that way. Which is pretty useful, and they're becoming useful when it comes to the shooting range later on. So these 2 rounds, once again, they're not too bad whatsoever. You most likely won't fail at these unless you're truly being awful. Another nice thing with the shotgun I should actually mention is this is the only weapon in this lot that doesn't need manually reloading because it's a pump action shotgun. So by the game's logic, I know this isn't quite how real shotguns work, but this one you just essentially pump it each time, and you never have to reload, unlike a real pump action shotgun where of course you would have to reload. Now this is where it gets awkward, around 3 of the shotgun, because the AI are very, very accurate with this. What I would recommend to you is aiming for the bottom. Sort of aiming for the thighs and then moving upwards slowly, because the AI almost never ever go for the thigh shot. They'll always go for the head, the middle of the body, and you don't want to be competing with the AI for those, because also if there's sort of a tie-up, it seems like it awards the AI far more than it would award you, per se, if that makes sense. So, you know, if 2 of you are shooting at something at the same time, or it feels like the same time, it feels like the game will award the AI the point, as opposed to you. And you can actually see I'm sort of struggling slightly on this one, because they are very, very quick indeed. I also probably shouldn't have... here's a little bit of a recommendation. Don't be me. I know it's cool to show up to the shooting range in a cowboy hat, however, it can block your view slightly, so maybe don't wear any headgear while you're in here, or have an afro. Either way though, you can see I just beat them out. Again, it's all about aiming for the thighs on these weapons, because the AI don't necessarily go for the thighs, they'll sort of polish them off last. And finally, the bane of my existence, the AK-47 round. This one isn't too bad in the first 2 rounds, the AK-47, I love the AK-47, it's a fantastic weapon. You know, great accuracy, great damage, and of course in this game you can actually lock on with the assault rifles, which means unlike in Vice City, they're entirely useful, as opposed to sort of being those weird weapons that recoil all over the place. These things barely have any recoil, very accurate. You know, this in the M4 I'm a big fan of. Unfortunately, I'm not so much a fan of it in this one, because as much as it's a very accurate weapon, guess who else finds it very accurate? Those AI bastards. Also, they can beat you in these 2 rounds. I never got beaten, as far as I remember, in these 2 rounds. But it can definitely happen, although you're more likely to lose on round number 3. Now, with this being such an accurate weapon, there's no point going for the micro SMG strategy of sort of spraying and praying with this one. It's all about accurate shots. I will admit, on PC this would be a hell of a lot easier, of course, you know, mouse and keyboard, you can be much more precise with your aiming. Of course, if you haven't seen an episode of this LP before, we're playing this on the PS2, or more specifically the PS4 version, and that controller isn't accurate. You know, controllers in general, without any form of manual aim, aren't quite as accurate as their PC counterparts, so... Anyways, round number 3, you can see I'm already getting ready to adjust and shoot for the fires. I usually recommend going for the furthest target away from you, so if you start off with the target on your left, you'll want to shoot for the right fire, the target's left thigh? I don't know, I'm trying to explain this, you get what I mean. Sort of aim it so you can sort of shoot the first one and then drag it across, would be the way I'd recommend. I actually got a really good run out of this one, as you can see as well, spray off all your excess ammunition before the target gets a chance to respawn, because the reload on this is actually pretty straightforward. You can see here, I got a little bit worried. Usually on this one it'll be one booth that runs away with it, so you need to really watch out for that. But as you can see, they never usually aim for the bottom. You do get $10,000 from doing that. A whole heap of sort of weapon level. As you can see, I got Hitman level with the pistols there. And that's it for the Ammunation shooting range. As I said, an absolute bitch of a side mission this, especially on console. Not too bad on the PC version, but for consoles, good luck to you. Just remember my tips, and don't hate me too much if they don't quite work out for you. Anyways, and that's it for this episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Next time, we're fortunately going back to something we're very good at by this point, oyster hunting. So join us for that. Until then, farewell.
Down, speeding all around. The naked 47 got the power and it's bound to move any mother that gets in my way. Just another power machine on the freeway. Riding with me, there's my MC homeboy. Knowing the rules ain't part of his program. Finding the right way around this map might be pretty hard, cause he's fucked on crack. Gee, Grand Theft Auto.